Welcome everybody. You are listening to 2.5 Gamers No Bullshit Gaming Podcast session number 19. We are discussing latest news and having fun, but also dropping knowledge. Let's not forget, this is a 4 a.m. conference discussion vibe, so stop being so serious. Today we have Felix, ad monetization guru Braberg. We have Jakub, game design secrets whisperer Remiar, and we have myself, Matej, UA dad Lančarič in the house.
Are you sure you're pronouncing that name right, Matej?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I know everybody's butchering my name, but fuck it. Yeah.
Why don't you switch your name, mate? Like, come on, it's too hard.
I should do the US trick. I always go with Matthew. Yeah, Matthew. Yeah, Matthew when I'm in the US because it's way easier. I mean, it's Matej in English basically, so it's fine. But still,
Maciek. Yeah. I'm gonna call you Maciek from now on.
Matej is better.
Matej is better. I know. Yeah, it's ridiculous. But I might probably just put the J in the brackets so everybody knows it's actually a silent J.
Mate.
Yeah, it's just gonna be mate.
All right.
Mate. Yeah, but yeah. So today we will discuss the King League. Oh, wait for that. We have some corrections again. Who said that? And then the Mr. Secret Whisperer is going to share some game design tips to level up your game. All right, so let's start with the correction.
Yeah. Exactly. So after our episode, our friends at Vungle actually reached out and had a little correction. So what I said was the bidder doesn't go above 26. It turns out the Vungle average is 26. So they did actually share with me kind of some actual eCPM averages, some actual CPM averages, which is quite interesting because you can kind of see here roughly what you can expect from the Vungle bidder if you go live with different game categories. So right at the top, you have Scratcher and Sweepstakes, average ECPM on the Vungle network.
What the fuck is that?
Yeah, I actually don't know, but like it must be those like apps you download where you get offers, surely, right? Like You're winning stuff. Yeah. Either way, yeah. $39.3 average. And basically, hyper casual racing, really big surprise for me, 27.4. This must be rewarded video, otherwise this makes no sense. And also idle averages around 20.4. So the games I manage and where I have Vungle, I can tell you it's considerably less. So I guess I need to talk to my Vungle rep and see why it's not on this average.
Yeah.
But yeah, apologies for that. For that wrong information. So the Vungle bidder does go above $26, but the average is 26.
Nice. Okay. Well, you should, you should learn better. It's second correction.
I do have a really good excuse, and I'm very fortunate to have this excuse. I am blonde. And sometimes blonde make mistakes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's fine.
But blondes have more fun.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true as well. Nice. Well. All right, so I hope this sets the CPM prices and everything as it should be. And I'm not sure if we can share this list with the listeners, but definitely if you want to see that, reach out. Or just hit the subscribe button.
They did say I was allowed to share all these numbers, so nice, okay. I hope I'm not stepping on any toes. Well, yeah, let me know.
Yeah, subscribe, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you want to be. Also in my newsletter if you want to be there.
All right. Scoop time.
Yeah, let's do the King League. So we have received multiple emails after our King episode with all the analysis, and we got some leaked information. But these. Let's see, employees, maybe not. They requested to remain anonymous, so we respect that. But we were mostly right about a lot of stuff, so that makes us really happy. So let's start with the UA and the performance marketing. So apparently, I was right about King struggles to retain the talent for more than like 2 or 3 years. Because, they're a corporation and without having regular promotions, it's kind of hard to retain the talent. And I was also right about the paying and the salaries. So, because apparently it looks like they hire juniors with, pay them not that much. And then, after you just learn, have some experience, then, you get poached by other companies. And what happens? You get double your salary from the big tech companies. There you go. If you're smart enough, you get all these offers all the time. So why not? And this was why King decided to go in-house with everything in like 2016, I think, or somewhere around that, because they were losing a lot of talent to all their third-party vendors and the agencies they were working with, which kind of sucks, of course. But yeah, well, what can you do? What can you do? That's how it is. It was always a problem in Slovakia as well with bigger companies, and not having regular promotions and getting shitty salaries. So there you go. But then, in terms of the creatives and the brands, well, apparently the brand team is very strict, which we always
as we expected.
Yeah, as we expected. So
the cornerstone of any successful gaming company.
Yeah, some creatives definitely were not as as according to the brand guidelines as they should. So even if they performed quite well, they were killed because it wasn't supposed to. Candy Crush can't look like some other weird hyper casual game and just used all these tricks because you have brand department. So there you go. But I might get some people angry because the brand team is small, so there can be slip here and there, so they can't see everything you use on the UA side because they're a big corporation now. So they decided to go brand over the performance, which is unfortunate, but I understand. I understand completely. Although I don't understand if you want to make less money. So yeah, well, I'm pretty happy about the analysis we've done, and apparently this was pretty correct. So kudos to myself.
So moving on from Matej's, patting himself on the back to me patting myself on the back with ad monetization, because it turns out I was completely right about the eCPM assumptions that I made.
You should have seen him in Vegas at the MAU. He was like super happy, smiling. He's like, "Hey, I've seen that information. I was so right. This feels
right.
so good."
I estimated it at $17 global average eCPM. What they're currently seeing is 16. So pretty much bang on. And
there you go.
Victory lap. So the interesting thing is here, so I didn't know this, which came out now, was that King does have its own its own proprietary self-built mediation platform. But the interesting thing is that back in 2013, that's when King started actually experimenting with ads. And the chief creative officer, I think we're seeing a trend here, basically killed the whole thing because he saw ads for breast enlargements. And basically that led to them killing ads for a couple of years, and which is to me a very knee-jerk reaction by someone who probably got very angry. If you work with ads, what you do at that point is you look over your block list, and if it's a serious issue, you basically hire more people that can help you with the block list and policing of your own ads, so you don't cut the revenue off at the knees. So yeah, to me, that was quite interesting to read. Also, after that, there were set some rules that every single ad had to be approved by a King employee directly, and they allowed no gaming, no gambling, no alcohol, and no tobacco. Gambling, alcohol, tobacco, it's
What's
fine.
there to left?
Gambling, tobacco, and alcohol is fine. In terms of your performance mix, that won't have any impact on your overall ad revenue if you ban that, because it's such a small part. But no gaming, that's an absolute killer. Like if you block that, you have your eCPM easily. So apparently in 2016, like they launched like ads again in kind of a beta by hiring some big sales executives from the US, which kind of went quite well in non-Candy titles, like Candy Crush titles. So, but in 2017, this is where it got really intense apparently. They hired 100 ad salespeople to sell their inventory directly.
What?
So apparently they hired some main guy from Snap, who basically got referred or something. But basically, for me, this is insane because no matter how big King is on ads, like they're still tiny compared to a network. Because like, yeah, sure, they have a 20 million MAU, but like comparing that to maybe an AppLovin or Iron Source ad network, that's absolutely nothing. So hiring and to sell that direct is just completely like outlandish to me. So apparently later on they allowed some more ad networks and moved to selling direct with Facebook and Google. Exactly what I said. And basically now they're focusing more and more on ads. And I was wrong with one wrong thing. I was wrong about the impressions that they're currently getting. I assumed quite a lot lower impressions, but actually this must be higher because if they're averaging a $16 eCPM, their actual run rate, according to an investment banker that basically tracks the gaming industry, is that King made last year $350 million from ads. So it's scaling up for them, but like it really sounds as like there's still a lot of headwinds against ads. And if you're building your own mediation, that is going to cost an absolute fortune. And one of the emails actually mentioned this, that they had been building this under their own subsidiary, but it's basically just like super expensive. And yeah, it's just super interesting because like we had this discussion, like I've had this discussion with so many gaming companies, like should we build our mediation? I'm like, guys, you have two experts in the industry that live, breathe, and die by building their own mediation. That's Iron Source and AppLovin. And it's still kind of weird that you can assume that you can build a better mediation than these guys. And it's just like, just accept that you will get your pants pulled down over something, but you'll be better off it on like a bottom line as a company. And that's fine. Like I can accept that kind of trade-off.
Nice.
Yeah.
So the lesson is don't build your own mediation still, as it was before, and it will 100%. Be in the future.
100%. Like
a lot of companies, they're like obsessed with building their own in-house solutions, which sometimes can work well. But if there is like a lot of other possibilities, why would you just reinvent the wheel over again? It's just doesn't make any sense.
Plus also like now with Iron Source and like AppLovin, like they have their own network, which is like, sure, that's where they earn their money, but like it also earns you money. Like you have very similar kind of, you're in the same, like similar interests, like in this, like similar goals. So it's, for me, it's just, super interesting. But I guess like if you build one of the most successful gaming, like mobile gaming companies ever, like you can justify these things. Because if you have really big like budgets, it just must be so easy to go like, we'll build it ourselves. It's not that much. But in reality, probably is much if you compare it to any other like place. But yeah. So that's what I thought that was the most interesting. Thanks a lot for all the information. I think that sums it up for me.
Yeah. How about yourself, Mr. Jakub?
Mr. Blues brother?
For me, it's like finishing the topic here, like I guess most of these kind of hidden costs are within maintaining and upgrading the solution that you built, not really kind of building itself. Like I don't think so. That's the hardest part. The hardest part is like keeping it up to date. And that's where like this kind of a sunken cost fallacy can really bite you off. But like seeing this in few companies I was in before, this kind of, it's a recurring nightmare, let's say.
Yeah, recurring nightmare.
If you've built a mobile game for iOS or Android, you've experienced user churn. You can win those users back, but it's getting more and more expensive, even more so to acquire totally new users. Enter cross-promotion with Addictive. By identifying your users likely to churn early, you can showcase another game in your portfolio before they leave forever, transforming a lost user into a new user, increasing your revenues. Learn more now at addictive.com.
Yeah, nice. Okay.
Anyway, so in context of the last episodes where we were talking some few tips on UA and ad monetization, let's try to do the third wheel here and try to do some actual game design and product tips.
Actual design. Oh, look at you.
What? Actual design?
So I was looking at this from kind of a broader perspective of not really talking about features, but rather some techniques that are not that kind of common within the industry. Let me just say first that game design equals monetization in free-to-play. If you are kind of disregarding this topic, or let's say if you don't think so, or you have these teams separate, it usually creates a lot of problems. So in like the previous model where you would have either pay and play, the premium one where you would create the game and then sell it, this was not the case really, because you didn't really care after the person actually purchased the game, and it's proven that even AAA games had much lower retention than like actual free-to-play games have, where there's not that many people finishing Witcher 3 till the end. That's just proven fact.
I didn't even finish like 2 hours of the gameplay. 2 hours of the gameplay. It's fucking boring.
No, it's great. It's one of the greatest RPGs ever made.
Of course.
Anyway.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, so the monetization drives a lot of mechanics here and needs to be entwined deep into the design of the game. Otherwise, you are just duct taping it over it or risking some kind of really, really big problems later down the line, which are not really obvious from the start, but later down the line they return with an interest. So that's one of the bigger problems. So under assumption of these, let me just go into some of these. So the first tip would be model your economy. I know this can sound trivial or like, everybody probably do this. No, they don't.
Sounds like bullshit to me.
Yeah.
And most people don't even have this, because what I'm talking about here is that, of course, you need to be able to control your sources and sinks. It means that you know how much stuff is going in and how much stuff you're demanding from the players. That's one thing. Usually you have those in some kind of parameter sheet. They need to be there. If you're better, you have those in some kind of a simulation sheet and the accumulation. But what I'm talking about is actually modeling the progression of an average player at how much time it takes him to get from point A to point B. And this is where it gets kind of hazy, because which player?
Question. So if I'm decoding Remo's talk right now, rule 1, model your economy, basically no bullshit version of that is don't be lazy, get an Excel sheet and do a model in Excel on the different players and how they can progress in your game.
Yeah, let's say that in Felix talk.
In Felix talk, there you go. And you said you're blonde.
Hard.
Yeah, of course everybody can do that.
It isn't hard. Just that like 80% people don't have that, because the
look at
problem
him.
is that you cannot really justify like this kind of average player. You need to pick one, and it's usually a modular player that doesn't exist, but you need to model him anyway. So you
like
pick
a whale, a minnow, and like
no. Not calling about payment tiers. It's more based on engagement. So how do you model these? You pick up some kind of a recurring session pattern that you expect that people will play. Like you can check this with your metrics, with your average daily sessions or average daily session playtime, and try to kind of model it around. Sometimes they increase, sometimes they decrease. There's also one of the problems you should be looking at, because some games just screw up their sessions, like the old farm mill, where you could, when you were collecting your first crops, and by the time you collect your last crops, the first ones already grew up. So it will go into loop. So you need to control your session time. But by picking some kind of average engagement, you then, based on that engagement, try to model the sessioning of a player. And by that thing, you try to model the resources and the demand that he's requested from the game. And this is actually the part where you create deficiencies, where the game starts demanding more resources off of the player than he gets. Otherwise, there's no reason to spend money, of course.
Do you have any examples of these that you're allowed to share? Because Man, I would actually love to see what actually one of these looks like. If it's well made.
Don't know if there's like a really good example here, but let's use the example of Clash Royale.
Mm-hmm.
Clash Royale economy is built on gold scarcity. So the more you progress through the game, the more cards you have, and you always have like lots of these to upgrade, but you have less and less kind of a gold to spend compared to the amount of upgrades of cards that you have. So at some point, somebody in Clash Royale Supercell design team decides, okay, this is the time where you will be really gold starved, and this is the time where you need to grind. And some people monetize and convert right there. Some people just move through the grind and go on, so forth. So and that's the point where you pretty much decide on the steepness of these curves, that how much you want to push. Like the current theme in the industry, of course, is the spending that of Diablo Immortal. Somebody there was also kind of projecting these numbers and says, okay, by level 60, you don't really feel anything because we have this kind of a 20-hour-long campaign that you can play through. You will feel great. Everything will pretty much die off. But at some point, the content of the game will scale to the level that you need to have like an external source of gold, which if you don't pay, you need to grind. And that's the point. So you need to have this kind of a behind-the-scenes plans from the economy. It doesn't just kind of happen and you monetize suddenly. And this is one of the other bigger mistakes that people make, that they don't really kind of count out their sources as they add more and more features into the game. This needs to be readjusted all the time. Because, suddenly you get these achievements, so you get some resources out of there. We are giving this event, so we give you these amount of resources. We're giving you that, and so on and so forth. This still needs to be kind of like a live organism. I know it's kind of hard now that, we laid out all that needs to be put into it, but yeah, this is really, really good to have. The next good thing about this is double check reality through dashboards. So even if you have this kind of a really, really sophisticated model of your economy, make sure that you also build your dashboards and you check with the actual kind of a game that's being played behind the scenes, and players are playing it as you wanted and resources are flowing as you wanted them to flow. Because this could be also one of the other problems, that even though you designed it some way, players are either finding a different way how to get resources out of the game, or some kind of unintended scenarios happen within the game, and then you see those in the charts.
Which always happens because everything looks good on paper. Time. Everything looks good on the paper, but then in reality, it's like way different.
Exactly. Like I remember seeing games that were kind of like, we're gonna sell this and this and this will be our main source of revenue. Yeah, nobody cared for that. Nobody, literally nobody. And some kind of like completely different item was the main source of the revenue.
Yeah, you mean like with Axie Infinity, right? What happened wasn't in the original plan, and then it exploded, and then it died again. So it's fine.
Yeah, like wasn't adjusted to that kind of a scenario, because you always need to remember that you're pushing your game against the hive mind of the internet that will always min-max it. Always. There's no
always, of course.
We're gonna get off with this. No, never. There will be people doing the Excel sheets for you, like for the player base. So better do them yourself first. As for the dashboards, I would also advise not only building the primary KPIs, but also secondary KPIs. So let me get through it. Usually how you see dashboards being built in companies is that you have these kind of primary KPIs that you benchmark against industry, such as like RPU, D3, D7 retention, I don't know, D30, LTV, average revenue per whatever something, these kind of usual metrics that are really, really easily to benchmark against, and everybody needs to know them, like, the monetization team, the UI team, everyone. But then you have these kind of secondary KPI metrics, which are really, really specific to the game, and they mostly help the design team to either balance the game or just check how much of it, like how much the content is performing, especially the new one that is being slotted into the game. So I'm talking about some stuff such as like number of battles played per day, number of levels passed through day, number of, mechanics added somewhere and played them with. Like, for instance, I know match 3 games excel at these. Like, they literally measure everything. And for instance, the pass-through rate of levels, like big match 3 games, they have constant A/B tests on the plan, that they constantly want to get the best index against monetization, conversion, and churn. You have this kind of a golden sweet spot of frustration tolerance where that one level pisses you off and you really, really want to pass it.
Yeah.
But it cannot be that hard because otherwise you churn the game and leave. And so they are in this kind of influx of constant testing. And there's numerous of these other kind of a secondary mechanics that other games have developed for themselves. Like it's mostly done in genre expertise, but just want to say, like, if you don't have those, have them, because they're really important, and slowly over time you can even build on those if you just don't have any experience with those, but they will be really, really interesting, especially when you're adding new content into the game or like you're changing stuff. So let me give you an example.
We love examples.
Love examples as well. Finally,
examples.
yeah.
I would really, really like to see what happened to Hearthstone when they added that new battleground mode, which pretty much kind of they shoot themselves into foot with their monetization, because there you could pretty much play with all the cards and you don't need to kind of buy new ones. And the interesting metric would be the share of time the users would then spend in this other mode against their main mode. So again, these kind of secondary KPI metrics would help you to kind of evaluate, did we really improve the game? Like, aren't that users now spending, 40% more time in this other mode and 30% less in the main mode, which means there's like much less spending now because they don't need the cards actually in the new mode. And you would see that immediately. So how features are done this way, I would always advise, if you're like doing some really, really big changes to the game and you don't want to run it through A/B tests because you can't do them through an event. And that event, if it works well, add it permanently to the game. If it doesn't work well, change it and do it again.
Do it again.
Very clever. Good advice.
Are you looking at the number of sessions as well? Like a day or any time period?
Like, again, depends on what you want to achieve here. You definitely cannot really push it that much within some games, so make sure that you don't prolong the session too much when it gets like, it's still better to have more session throughout the day with less session time rather than very, very big sessions that just, because...
never ending.
Yeah, because then you kill the granularity, which means that when your player is, waiting for that coffee at Starbucks or walking down the street or waiting for something, he cannot just pull up his phone, do his little session, and then, return later, because he knows, it will take me like 20 minutes just to get into something. I cannot do it. So,
like with Apex Legends on mobile at the moment, I can't play it because I need 20 minutes, and if I'm 20 minutes sitting on the toilet, then my leg hurts.
And these are exactly the things that these kind of secondary dashboards will help you to kind of check through. So just the sessioning, just the battles played, and like after these kind of changes, always look through them, make sure that you are in control of your game. Otherwise, the worst that can happen, you add a feature and you don't know what happens. Revenue goes up. So you took it as we increased the revenue, but then suddenly something happens and you don't know what's happening because you didn't kind of, attribute it correctly in the first place. So these are kind of culprits or like hidden problems if you don't really are in charge of your KPIs. But those are really hard to do, to be honest. Sometimes games behave really mysteriously. Sometimes users just find fun in something that you don't really find fun, but they will, and you cannot stop them. So we'll see.
Yeah, they always try to find loopholes and exploit everything they can.
Yeah, but it's like that's one of the greatest feelings that you can get. Like, players are trying to break your game and they find enjoyment in it, and that's great.
Like Idle Miner Tycoon, still they haven't fixed that bug. If you change your date in the phone, basically putting it at future, couple years down the line, you get all the gems. So you can just skip to the as far ahead in the game as possible. And they still haven't updated that, and it's been 4 years.
That's not breaking the game. That's cheating and not having server-wide infrastructure.
Well, you can call it whatever you want. I mean,
Yeah, and by the way, this is also really good where if you want to spot cheaters, this is the safest and easiest way that you can do through the secondary KPIs, that you can easily see this player is, getting too much resources, too much power, too much battle, something. Your community support will also love these ones.
Yeah, look at this player. That's definitely Felix getting all the gems at once because he's from the future.
Do you not play at 2040? Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, let's move on.
Wait. So double check reality is number 2, which I'm going to translate to no bullshit to be don't be lazy, measure everything.
Yeah, build your dashboards.
Build your dashboards.
Yeah, because some people don't even kind of have the dashboards. They just kind of end up on the system that just ask the data team and they will like pick up a query,
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask. Like, if if you are not able to build your dashboard, then who should do that for you? Like your data team, analyst, UA guy. Who are you going, to approach?
Yeah, it's your data team or like a third-party company if you can really do that. But you really need those because, like, I would say for live game, that's like 20% of the time of a designer to just look through all the dashboards that everything is okay, especially after every update.
And then what kind of tools you use for the dashboarding? Is it just Data Studio or is it Looker? I don't know. Tableau?
Yeah.
Depends on your pipeline.
Okay.
Like how your data team is comfortable with working with. Like in the end, you are the one, the designer in the end who can set up the dashboards. Like, you decide what to
build
put on
me everything I want.
X and Y axis and, depends
can
on
you,
your
Can you give just like as well, like off the cuff, some metrics that you should definitely have in your dashboard? Like just to rattle off a couple of them that come to mind.
You already mentioned them. Come on.
The usual ones like all the conversions, the retention, like attribute installs, if everything is working great. If definitely have the flow of resources. So how much resources has been given throughout the day, how much has been burned out. So if there's, equilibrium somewhere or if, stuff is inflated or not. So check your inflations definitely. And then, kind of engagement rates, I would say. That would be the last one. So make sure that, let's say, I don't know, we have this new mode in the game and it's being engaged by, 10%, 20% of the player base. What can we do to increase that? So should we unlock it sooner into the funnel? Okay. Should we, give more rewards? Maybe is there shitty rewards? People don't want to play it. Maybe there's, different problems. The charts won't tell you the solution. They will just tell you the symptom of the problem. So
sure. But at least there is something wrong and where to find it. Okay.
Definitely. Okay, next one. Plan your content scaling for longer periods of time. Yeah, this is more of a like building a game tip rather than like your current tip. But every game that wants to be successful eventually ends up in this scenario where you definitely want to kind of pre-plan how to scale the game a long time. Scale means like years on average. Like usually what I hear in the industry is like, we want to run the game for at least 5 to 6 years, let's say. And after that, like that's, I would say, would be the usual time span of a successful mobile game. If we're talking like Candy Crush or Clash of Clans level, of course, they're 10 years plus counting. But let's take
sure. But if you have a small
years.
game and you don't even know, or small company, you don't even know if you're going to be in business in 5 years. So
it doesn't mean you're not supposed to build it. You need to plan for it. That's
okay. All right.
That's the magic thing here, because the problem is that of course nobody's forcing you to build all those levels and everything. Like I remember, what was it, when I was last checking, like some of the original match 3 games like Angry Birds Blast or Toon Blast, like they started to like 300 to 400 levels, but they have like thousands of levels now. But in order to have those levels, they need to first kind of devise a metrics or like a system in order to build mechanics on top of it. Like if you look into the match 3 games, for instance, I think, what was it, Toy Blast or Toon Blast, they add like a new mechanic every 40 levels. And this is constant. So they know that they have this kind of a matrix of mechanics, of parameters. They just switch around and like add new content on top of it. So let's say you have this whatever bubblegum mechanic where you need to blast two times near it. Then you add like a third one into it, so you need to blast 3 times. It's a snowman. Then you need to whatever, it hangs in space, it doesn't affect by gravity, and there's another mechanic. So they have a formula behind it where there's a clear design vector that says, okay, we'll go this way and we can scale it and we can have thousands of levels because it's okay. But that plan was probably done somewhere like before the launch, not like somewhere later down the line. That's one of the other big problems that games faces when they just launch the game. Soft launch is great. Everything is looking good. Golden Cohort is performing well. And then suddenly after 3 months, everything goes to shit because the content just runs out.
Yeah, of course. Because even if you plan for 3 months, like you said before, like there are players that are going through the content in way different pace that you would expect. So you need to plan more than 3 months of content, like 6 months, year of content. Is there any a best practice for that?
Yeah,
usually the more the better, I know.
Yeah, we're getting to that kind of a dreaded content treadmill, but eventually this is like the end game of any successful mobile free-to-play game. Like sometimes you can build it better, or in a way just by the nature of the gameplay. So I would say Clash Royale team, for instance, I wouldn't say is that demanding based on content treadmill, so they just add new heroes or new arenas or events or something like that. But if you have like a Candy Crush model, you add like 40 levels every 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So I don't know what currently cadence they're running.
Man, the discipline to do that without knowing if your game is going to be a success and put in all that work, that requires some discipline.
Yeah. Like, you need to know what you're doing. And just imagine like they add 40 levels every 2 or 3 weeks. How many of those would be shot down? And only like the best ones would get actually into the build, and they're still testing those. So they would be like hundreds of levels probably they're doing, and only the best ones get into the build. So yeah, sometimes these content treadmills can be spotted even like during production, and you need to go around them and make sure that you have the capacity to kind of be able to run them. Otherwise, they can run you over into the ground, which means users will reach the end, they will consume your content, and then leave the game. That's
and you're fucked.
Yeah. So just some other things that are kind of useful to talk about is power creep here. Like this is one of the, let's say, most used mechanic when you're running out of content and people pretty much have everything, especially RPG games run into this, is you eventually will be doing power creep. Power creep means that you're doing pretty much similar content than previously, but you are making it much more stronger. Therefore, the players need to buy it in order to stay competitive. But usually that means that you're also building up new content that they can defeat that content with that new heroes that are power creep on top of it. So it's not just, pure stats. So another example, how I would not really do it, would be if you remember the Diablo 3 formula for Unix after their big kind of a reshuffle of the game economy after they closed the auction house. So it was kind of a loot fest from that point on. And people are pretty much showered with legendaries every run.
Yeah.
And what happened that people were just going for these like really, really small percentage increases in the stats of those legendaries, and those were pretty much the best ones. So at some point they introduced these kind of legendaries, which means like, I think they were called like ancient or something.
Yeah.
And it means that they had like 10% more better stats, like a randomization pool than the previous pool. So what happens next after people already jumped and farmed the shit out of these? They add like ancient. Which they just had another 10%. And this is the problem, that my guess was that unfortunately Diablo team was just understaffed with building content. Yeah. So like the easiest way you can do this power creep mechanic is through just spreading your Excel sheet forward.
You think there'll be an ancient thing coming?
I think they went even that, like there was like three.
It's the same like with creatives and the versions like final version 2, final, the real final and stuff like that. Like this, it's always
Final Pro, Final Max.
But the problem here is that like there's clear diminishing returns here within power creep. So if you don't really build the content for it, then it's gonna run yourself into the ground again, because people won't really kind of appreciate them farming the same thing over and over again just for like 5% stat increase or something in that matter. So I would say another example from Blizzard doing it really good would be the transitions between the World of Warcraft expansions, where they would do another expansion with a massive amount of content. Your gear would be then completely shit pretty much, because a player in, I don't know, random blue gear at level 72 would steamroll over you if you were like the decked out 70 from previous expansion. But you had so much more content to play through with it. So people weren't that pissed that even though so much time they put into like collecting the gear from previous expansion would be inflated away. So this is one way to do it properly, that build content for that power creep, because it creates a great entry point for new players to jump in, but also the new content for the power players that been there from the beginning. They now have like a new playground to play with, so they are not pissed that imagine if there would be just the stat increase without the actual expansion of like land and quests and everything. So
everybody will be pissed pretty much.
Exactly. So this again returns us back to the previous problem that games require content treadmill, and they are never kind of done. They are games as service usually. So
Yeah.
let's face that. Make sure that you are selling impactful content. Number 4. Again, this is a more kind of a pre-production one, or like pre-design one, I would say. The problem
you don't you just duct tape everything on top of your live game?
Most probably not. but let me just say that this goes back to the original problem of you trying to sell something, and it needs to matter to the actual player. So a good example here would be when Clash Royale came out in 2016, there were a lot of clones and a lot of kind of games trying to fit the gacha mechanic into it. Let's just omit all the direct clones because they really didn't add anything into current discussion. But I know there were a lot of games that were trying to add the gacha mechanic into something that didn't really fit the core gameplay. Like I've seen a game that was trying to add the gacha mechanic into like poker, and that didn't fit well. Or like Yahtzee, like some of these kind of, like try to add gacha into chess, like it won't work in a way that the core gameplay won't support the gacha mechanic. You need to kind of have core gameplay design around that mechanic that it makes sense to scale the stats. And a good example would be again Golf Clash, that would took the Clash Royale shard gacha mechanic, and the biggest problem, or let's say the biggest design innovation they did, was create and design those parameters of the staffs, and then on the environments that would be scaled through those. So it actually means something when you have that kind of a parameter on your club where, it's resistant against the wind, or there's like you're better now if you're firing from sand or grass or whatever. And there's like a clear game here that you need to kind of follow, because Clash Royale meta game is driven by PvP meta, whereas Golf Clash meta game is driven by the environment meta. So there's like a clear thing where people were looking for stats on stuff based on their requirements in the environment. So there's the usual, problem A requires stuff A, problem B requires stuff B, and you need to include those in your deck, otherwise you are not able to overcome the challenge. So I know it sounds kind of trivial, but sometimes people forget these, and they just say, okay, we'll somehow duct tape it together, it will work, it won't. And that's the biggest problem, that like the death of a gacha would be where one piece kind of solves all your problems, so you don't need to have like all the pieces upgraded, or even don't need to interact with gacha from some point on. And this goes again, same here, where the gameplay, for instance, you adding gacha into the poker wasn't that impactful, so you could still win the game without any gacha upgrades, or even the guy with you decked out fully to the gacha upgrades that he had, because you just were able to play a nice game of poker. So that's like, I know it's kind of hard to grasp here, but this is especially kind of important when you're designing a new game and trying to, I'm talking about you iterating usually on a new genre where you want to kind of, get something new out of the formula, like the Golf Clash example, or even Tennis Clash example. There's another good example where they took the tennis kind of core gameplay and tried to add parameters on top of it. So that's really important. Yeah, and our favorite one.
Yay, that's my favorite.
Know your spending depth.
This is such a good one. Yeah. And it's so like perfect timing right now with the whole Diablo Immortal talk. This is going to be a good one.
Yeah, so know your spending depth. This is really important. Some people kind of assumes this. Some people just, let's get the benchmarks from the other game, just copy the number somewhere and it will somehow work. This is really important, especially as you're improving the game and adding new layers of features on top of it, because these will change, and these will change dramatically. So it's really important that you know it from the first place, because even when you look at like the current craze of, battle passes in the end are cutting your spending gap a lot, because you're trading retention for monetization. It's like economy on discount on steroids. Those are like 1,000%, like 2,000% discounts. So like a great talk would be to look here where Supercell team did their Battle Pass implementation into Clash of Clans, I think. Yeah, that was the one. Where their designer, Aino, were having it, and he was kind of talking about how are they able to push more people into the middle of the economy. So there were kind of a lot of people on the lower levels, and they wanted to push them higher into the, so that an average Clash of Clans player will have more upgraded stuff. So they intentionally cut their spending that because now they had so much content that it didn't make sense to bear people with this kind of slow growth of progression, and they tried to move them higher. So, but you can only do this if you know that they will have spending afterwards, and you have to depth to sustain it, because they would not be able to do that in the global launch of the game. And the current example with Diablo is something similar thing here, that they don't really have the content to kind of offset this kind of big spending depth, so they just increase the probabilities to some really really measly numbers. That there's I think there's literally zero chance for a free-to-play player to get that 5/5-star gem or something like that, which those are pretty much stats on your character, but that's not additional content done into the game. So but I still guess it will grows money like hell in Asia, but
100%, man. 100%.
I have a question. So, the big headline, that was grabbing everything was microtransactions in Diablo Immortal cost you 100,000 to max out your character. I was seeing that, and I'm just if you're a social casino company looking at that, you're how does that stack up compared to a Clash of Clans? Because it was such a grabby headlines. But if you are in the know, where does that stack up compared to some of the other companies?
I don't know the current spending that, because I remember that number 25K being thrown around before the days, but they added a new city into it, so I would maybe double that or triple, depends. But the problem with your spending depth, and that's a design tip here, is that you need to kind of, again, similar to modeling your average player progression, you need to come up with some kind of set of things that you need during the end game that you then price into dollars, because buying outright everything isn't really needed in these games. You don't really need all the characters from Clash Royale upgraded to the max. That's not your max spending depth. Your max spending depth would be let's say if you're going easy, a fully upgraded one competitive deck in the current meta game at the end of last rank in Clash Royale. So only that is your biggest spending depth. Or let's say a team of heroes that you are able to take, I don't know, all 5-star 3 teams of 5-star heroes from every element in Empires and Puzzles, for instance. You don't need all the heroes, all the upgrades. You just need to come up with some kind of end game set of things that you then price into dollars, and that's your spending depth. So what people are doing in Diablo Immortal, they are pretty much it's kind of easy there, because you have fixed inventory slots there, and if you cover all the slots with all the maximum prices on the gems, then you get into those atrocious, really big numbers. So that's why it's kind of easy. But I don't think so you really need those that much, but in the end you can go there.
Of course you don't need it, but if you can buy it, then why wouldn't you? Spend just 100K, because why not?
Yeah, but as I said, it's really important, especially in pre-production of the game, or when you're before global launching and trying to assess the monetization and everything, know these numbers and make sure you can then cut from them. Because what usually happens, you have the base price in the shop as an anchor, but all the offers or promotions are actually being done on discount. I'm not even talking about the battle passes, which is the biggest discount. But, build it high in a way that you can then discount out of it when you're selling it, because that's the sales offers that are kind of attempting. The main shop is just the anchor usually.
I would love to know the spending depth of Slotomania. That must be insane. It's just
Yeah. All right. So we had these 5 game design tips to level up your game. Again, model your economy, double check reality through dashboards, plan your content scaling for longer periods of time, and then make sure that you're selling impactful content and know your spending depth. In this special episode, and you know why is this a special episode, guys? You don't. Because we are in the fucking same time zone, finally.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for that US trip, mate.
Yay, I know.
Made this easy.
Yeah, but you know what I found out? So thanks to the fact that I was in the US, I was able to upload videos to Spotify so we could get the Spotify with video. Now I moved back and I don't have the options anymore.
Spotify's even a Swedish company. Like, come on, guys.
Dude, yeah, it's ridiculous. So, but yeah, well, what can you do? So now
They don't know their spending depth. Nope.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's, apparently. Yeah. Thank you very much for sharing these interesting and impactful tips. That's great. So next time, I think we can do the creative deconstruction of the ants underground. What do you think? Next week, that would be amazing. That would be amazing.
Really need to catch up with the stories of ants defeating the
Oh yeah. So yeah, thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much, guys, for sharing all the knowledge. And also don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple, and wherever. Thank you very much. Until next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah.